Welcome to Saturday Morning Retro, episode 30. Podcast focused on retro gaming and giving ourselves an excuse to play our collection. Before we start the show, we want to thank all of our wonderful fans who have supported us. And if you want to show support for the Rated G Network, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/RatedG for Gamers. You can also find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Rated G for Gamers. And finally, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. We appreciate all the love. I'm your host, Dave Rotino, and this is my co-host, Dan, the podcaster formerly known as Classic or Robinson.
Salutations, man.
Salutations. I am I'm feeling good right now. I think everybody needs to know that I'm feeling good. We just got back from PAX East, so this episode is a little late because PAX East is a big show. We had a lot to do for it. Still got a lot more coming, so I am very excited to get back on the mics, talk about retro games. I feel energized, Dan. I feel good.
Well, me too, right, and me too. And this episode's a little late, and I think it's my fault. I take full responsibility. I thought this would be the last Saturday of the month. Mm-hmm. Apparently, it's not.
Nope.
It's the first Saturday of the month.
No, I'm gonna get you a calendar for your birthday, and it's gonna be Super Mario Bros. 3 theme, the greatest game of all time.
Oh, then I'll never be on point. I'll never be on point ever. We'll always miss. We'll always miss.
Well, listen. That's on you. See, you're anti-calendar.
No. You know, it would be the second greatest calendar of all time. It's Super Mario World calendar.
See, Dan doesn't conform to the 7-day work week. That's what it's really about.
As a matter of fact, it'd be the third greatest calendar of all time because the Sonic 2 calendar. We're probably
Sonic 2 is great. Sonic 3 is better though.
Sonic 2 is great.
Sonic
3 is definitely not better, but I'm
starting
100%.
To see a pattern with Dave's games. I'm sorry.
No way. You should apologize because you should be sorry.
You got that MJ soundtrack in there? Come on now. You got that lock-on technology that came out a little later? Come on now.
Well, that's just an easy mode for you guys who like easy games.
Easy mode? No, it adds a knuckles.
Challenge. You don't like a challenge.
Whole new 6 stages. Oh, it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
I'm starting to see a pattern with Dave's retro games. The third version is always his favorite.
In this game, I mean, Castlevania 3, I think is the probably the one of the best, if not the best, old school Castlevania games. So
what?
Yeah, that holds true.
Castlevania 1.
Castlevania 1 is great. Castlevania 1 is great. Don't get me wrong, but the branching paths and the alternate characters you can switch between.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Do you like the third version of Zelda better than the first two?
Definitely better than the second one. No, the first one's a classic, man. Third one is great. One is great. Link to the Past is great, but I'd have to go with the first one. Out of those three.
All right. So we finally broke the pattern.
There you go. See? I'm somewhat consistent.
All right. We have an awesome show this month or last month. We're going to talk about Pikmin 3 and Kid Icarus Uprising. But before we get into any of that stuff, we always start a Saturday Morning Retro Show with This Time in Gaming. This time in March 27th, 2007. This was actually an interesting part. Microsoft declared Uno to be the first Xbox Live arcade game to exceed 1 million downloads.
Huh.
So think about it. If I asked you, this is a pop quiz question. What Xbox Live game you think hit 1 million downloads? Right?
No, it definitely wouldn't be Uno.
On your list, right? Uno wouldn't be on your list.
No, it wouldn't. Well, now, if you asked me that question in a bubble, or not in a bubble, before I knew this answer, there's a couple things that I know about Xbox Live at that particular time. I know that for a while they were capping all digital games at 50 megs. So that kind of excludes any AAA title, right? Only certain titles. And I know they were going hard on a lot of the kind of like retro piecemeal. I know like Pac-Man was a big thing, and just all of the Centipede and whatever else. Like they were putting them all out on there at like $15 a pop. The prices were a little bit kind of like, maybe it should have been like $5 for Pac-Man because you just get the one. You didn't even get Miss Pac-Man with it. You just got Pac-Man. So I would probably say Pac-Man would be maybe the one, right? Get the nostalgia fix. But I would have never guessed Uno.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true. I would have never guessed Uno either. I definitely would have. Pac-Man would have been like Pac-Man, or I don't know if this was out, but like a Tetris style game, maybe if they had it out on there, or maybe definitely a retro game. I would have picked more, for be like 1 million downloads. That's kind of crazy.
Right. And like looking at it, it kind of makes sense that Uno hit 1 million downloads, right? Because with the advent of the integrated internet, broadband, right, becoming popular across at least like North America, and everyone and their parent were getting Xboxes and PlayStations and whatnot, right? It was really like hitting its stride in terms of like, just like mainstream visibility, right? Everyone's playing video games, kind of breaking the molds and all that. And not everybody is like hardcore Call of Duty, right? Maybe they want a casual experience. And Uno is that you can get online and play with like 3 of your friends. Like, I would definitely play Uno. I'm not above it.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, you're correct. All right, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
This is a show we have an excuse to sort of, I don't want to say brag because I never think we're bragging, but to sort of tout our pickups.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're excited. We like hunting for games. I know me personally.
The thrill of the hunt.
The thrill of the hunt. Yeah. It's almost more important than finding the actual games, but going out and putting in the work is really cool. And when you find a diamond in the rough, right? When you find a Marvel vs. Street Fighter for the PlayStation 1 for $5 at Goodwill, you want to talk about it. You feel good about the pickup, right? Because you know it's going to a good home, right? You know you get a good price on it. But that's not the game. I picked that up last year. That's not the games that I picked up in March. I picked up 2. I was a little light. Didn't find a lot of retro pickups or a lot of stuff I didn't have already, so light on that. But I did pick up Metroid Prime Remastered for the Switch and Demon's Tilt for the Switch. Now, Demon's Tilt was a pickup from our recent PAX East outing, and we did happen to see the creators. We got to meet the creators of the game there, which was really cool.
I got their autograph. Autograph on my copy of Demon's Tilt.
Yep. And
by the way, just as a side note, because we both bought it from Limited Run, because Limited Run had the physical editions.
Yep.
They sold out like that first day of Demon's Tilt. Like they only had like 10 copies.
Yeah.
something along those lines.
It's a great game. It used to be on the Microsoft Games Pass, and then they took it off one day. It was just not there anymore, and I cried. And I'm like, well, I really love this game, but I feel like there's going to be a physical. And then Limited Run answered the call. So I said, I got it. Now I can play it anytime, anywhere. It's great. And, I had to get Metroid Prime Remastered. I love Metroid. It is top 3 franchises. Top 3 gaming franchises for me. Right up there with Final Fantasy. And question mark on the third one. I'd have to give it a little bit of thought, but it's definitely in the top 3. And game is great. I'm almost done with it. Very, very, very happy with the work that the team did to bring that to modern consoles. It's how you do it. It's how you do a remaster.
Okay. Well, I mean, you already talked about in the previous show about like how you picked it up, because it is in like kind of short supply right now. I don't think it'll be scarce, moving forward in the next couple of months. But I did pick that up as well, and I talked about it on the show. I pre-ordered the European version because it was sold out everywhere.
Yeah, it was hard to get.
It was hard to get, and then GameStop, I saw like an advertisement for GameStop on YouTube saying that they had Metroid Prime in stock. I went on, I saw I can get it in like 2 days, so I ordered it and then canceled my pre-order from Play Asia because they told me I wouldn't get it until like the middle of April. So I did pick that up. I do have it in the collection. It is on Instagram and our pickups. So loving that I have that.
Nice.
By the way, all our PAX pickups, at least all my PAX pickups, I should say, is on the regular show. We definitely did an episode in our hotel room from PAX, the last day of PAX.
Yep,
So if
yep.
you want to hear all the games that I actually picked up from PAX, go and listen to that show.
Yep. It's episode 352. All right.
352. Yes. And I actually have the games in hand to show to camera so you can see what I actually picked up. So go check that show out. So I'm not gonna rehash that. But other games other things I picked up prior to going to PAX, I bit the bullet. I got the DualSense Edge for the PS5, and it's awesome. I gotta say, it's like supremely like the best controller like out there. I love this controller. I can't imagine. I really want to buy another one just so I can have two. To be honest, that's how much I love this controller. And I ended up picking up the Elite Controller 2 with I picked up the Elite Controller 2 by itself. It doesn't come with the case or any of the replaceable parts because I thought I can use the replaceable parts from the Elite Controller 1, but apparently they are different. So I end up buying the pouch with the replaceable parts separate for an additional like $60 or $50 or something like that. So I do have the full Elite Controller 2 in hand, and that is an awesome controller too. Like I can't imagine not having both of these controllers. These are my main controllers when I play Xbox games or PlayStation 5 games.
I have not played the Elite 2, but I have used the Elite 1, and it is definitely very good. It's worth it if you have the money. Yeah.
The Elite 1, I like on the Elite 2, it has like the rigid like grips that you can like really hold it, which the Elite 1 doesn't have. And the Elite 1, if it catch a little bit of dust, it's really hard to get it off. It's like stuck on stuck on the console. So I'm glad that they sort of changed the material of the top part of the Elite 1. And I sort of retired that. I put that like in the pouch, and I put that away. I definitely will, take it out and use it at some point when I'm playing like the Xbox One. But I just love the Elite Controller 2. Superior controller, I would say. And they just announced 2 new Elite Controller 2 color schemes, right? I think one is definitely red, and I think the other one is like purple. If I'm not mistaken, it could be. Don't quote me on the purple. It could be. I know it's red. One of them is red, and the other one is another color.
Right.
So I'm gonna go through some of these games pretty quickly because I did get a few pickups. I got Like a Dragon Inshin for the PS5. You're in feudal Japan, right? Like that actually came out in Japan. It was the game that they ported on the PS5 to come out in North America, but that game was already out in Japan.
Right.
I did pick up Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Fantastic game. Maybe in the running for my half game of the year on the Switch. Azure Striker Gunvolt 3. Say that 10 times fast. Got that for the Switch.
Okay.
Contra Anniversary Collection for the Switch. Limited run version actually came in this month. I did pick up a game I really wanted. Wanting to pull the trigger on it. Kind of expensive. Well, expensive-ish. It was like around like $50 for a Game Boy Advance game, and that is Sword of Mana. I want to have all the Mana games in the collection because it's more of an action RPG. It's not like a turn-based RPG. Then I wouldn't have cared. So I really wanted to play that. I used my Luki points. Luki Games, not sponsoring this show, which they should be because we talk about them a lot. I did use my points to get Mario Party 2 for the N64.
Nice.
And Tetris 2 for the Super Nintendo, by the way.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
I had it for the Game Boy, so it was like, I used my points to get Tetris 2 for the Super Nintendo. Worm, with a U, not a O. Journey to the Center of the Earth. Unique NES game. Definitely had to pick that up. That is like legit the definition of a hidden gem, and you would never, like I keep finding the game. Every time I think I know a console, I find a game I never heard of before, and it's like, wow, this I gotta play one day for the Saturday Morning Retro episode.
Yeah.
So pick that up. Tasmania for the Sega Genesis. Didn't realize that the Tasmania for the SNES and Tasmania for like the Sega Genesis were like 2 completely different games.
Oh yeah.
And I love the console war guys, right? When they talk about Genesis to SNES, I love when they battle. We should do that. We should do that for PlayStation and Xbox.
Oh my god, yeah.
But so I picked that up, and then I got Taz Wanted. I think that was an Xbox maybe that is an Xbox exclusive. I could have sworn I only really especially if you look on eBay, I think it's really only like the Xbox games that sold.
Right.
So now I have all the Tasmanian games. So
Okay. Nice.
that's it for my pickups.
All right.
Dave, this episode we're gonna go do something. We're not gonna do triple R this episode. We're gonna go straight to our top 3, and this is one of my favorite segments. And this month's top 3 will be our top 3 console launch titles.
Yep.
But I do gotta put a little. I do gotta preface, but put a little asterisk. Might be a little biased. Super Mario World, which is the best game of all time, not just the best Mario game of all time, in my opinion. I'm going to put that to the side because obviously, if I had to name the top 3 launch titles of any console, I would put Super Mario World, and Super Mario World. But we're gonna put that to the side. We're not.
I appreciate you branching out and not going with the obvious picks. Now, let's get some ground rules in place, right? Now, we're talking about launch titles for any video game console, handheld or home system, in any region. Could be a European launch, could be a Japanese launch, could be a North American launch, as long as the game is available on the initial launch day. So not a launch window, right? Like Microsoft tried to pull with the original Xbox. Oh yeah, it's a 3-month launch window. No. Day and date. If you can go get a system and you can buy a game on day 1 or a game that comes with the system, and as like the older systems, all of that counts. Everything else doesn't count.
So Wii Sports just takes it.
Wii Sports was great, man. I mean, it's one of the top selling games of all time because it came with the console. So every console sale counts as a game sale.
That's true.
So I'm gonna go first if that's cool. I'm gonna run down my 3, and then you can run down your 3.
Go ahead.
All right. So, and these are in no particular order, but my first pick is the GOAT of fighting games, the original Soul Calibur for the Sega Dreamcast. That game,
that's a good pick.
That game was a beast, man. That game was a beast. It was superior to the arcade version. It had more characters. It had more modes. It had better graphics. Had a completely updated graphical engine. It was on a completely different board, I believe. I think they were using one of the Naomi boards. I think that was Namco's thing. This game was amazing. You get it on day 1, right? It had over, I think, like 20 or so characters in the game. It had all these different modes in there. It was amazing. You can unlock art gallery stuff and all that. I believe there was like a mission mode in there again. It was really cool. There was a lot of really cool stuff in that game. Loved it. You get that on the day. Still to this day, one of the best Dreamcast games. All right, one of the best games of all time. One of the best Dreamcast games right there. My second pick, anyway, yeah, you want to talk about obvious? I mean, you have to mention Super Mario Brothers, the original for the NES. That game came packed in with the system. It was great. No matter which system you bought, came with 2 controllers, so you and your brother, or you and a friend, could play as Mario and Luigi. They gave you that game with the system, Dan. That's insane. Now, this is North America, right? In Japan, it came out in 83. We didn't have Super Mario Brothers then. Super Mario Brothers came out in 85 in Japan. And then they said, we're going to make this the pack-in title, right? So you got I think there was Popeye and Mario Brothers, right? Not Super Mario Brothers, the original Mario Brothers, the arcade one. And I think there was a third game. I think it was 3, maybe 4 games in the Japanese launch. So I think the North American launch was a bit better. They had a couple years, granted, to kind of really kind of work out the system. And that was a system seller. Everybody wanted Mario.
So in 1983, they had Donkey Kong Jr., and Popeye as the launch titles.
Oh, there you go. Those
on the Famicom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which solid. Don't get me wrong. Those are solid games. But Super Mario Brothers, it takes
superior.
Yeah. And my third, this is also going to be, I'm going to be obvious Andy again, but I had to put it down. Arguably, the greatest game of all time, the Desert Island game. When everyone asks you what game would you pick for a desert island, if you don't say Tetris, you are wrong. Even though it's an opinion question, you are still wrong. Tetris is the only answer. Infinite replayability. Game Boy Tetris is a banger. Has some of the greatest music of all time. You can just listen to it over and over again. All right? It's just it's pared down. There's nothing you can add to this game or take away from it to make it better, right? It is perfect. I love it.
How about color?
I mean, yeah, okay, sure. Maybe some color. All right, fine. The little
You
cute.
said nothing. You said
Oh,
nothing.
All right.
Yeah, well, color.
Gameplay wise, no, you can't add any new mechanics or anything that's gonna make it better.
Yeah.
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 So what about you?
It was the Wii of its time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Everybody had to have one.
That's
We
right.
always yeah. So
That's right.
so I went a little different.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked one international game because I think, and I wanted to go make it interesting, to have like a different console, and I'm gonna start with Alien versus Predator for the Japanese release of the Jaguar. Okay, and these are no in particular order either,
Okay.
but this wasn't a launch title in North America, but definitely was a launch title in Japan, because if you wanted to own a Jaguar, I mean, good games were few and far between. They didn't have a lot of good games, and Alien versus Predator is touted sort of as like the best game on a Jaguar.
I mean, it was great.
definitely
Yeah.
when they released this in Japan, this was sort of the killer app you needed to have to play on the system, right? So I would give it its due. That's a game that needs, honestly, we need. I don't want a remaster. Maybe I'll make it a recycle one day. Like give us a really good Alien versus Predator game, like in a modern form, right? Maybe like a third person action adventure game. That would be cool.
The last one was I think Fire Team. Aliens Fire Team or Fire Team Bravo, maybe, I think. Came out on recent systems. There is a new strategy game, like tactical strategy game. I know not your jam, but I'm actually kind of curious to see. It was on the PAX East show floor. I didn't get a chance to go by and check it out, but
yeah, me too. I didn't get a chance either.
Yeah, it looks kind of interesting. But okay, all right. I'm with you so far.
North American release for the Sega Saturn, the number one most underrated console of all time, in my opinion, Panzer Dragoon.
Ooh.
So the original Panzer Dragoon. If you remember, the Saturn came out in Japan in November. So Panzer Dragoon came out in the late spring, late winter, early spring. Came out in March. Originally, so it wasn't a launch title in Japan, but it definitely was a launch title for us in North America. And famously, when they had the Sega Saturn, it was announced and it was like it's out like today. It's like today, and retailers like, what do you mean it's out today?
Can we get some? Can we get some time to get these consoles in? Is no, you got
yeah, and just like the PS3, the Sega Saturn was notorious hard to program for, but they did a fantastic job with Panzer Dragoon. So Panzer Dragoon, definitely one of my top launch titles of all time.
Oh, that's solid.
And then come on, I gotta say this is the GOAT of launch titles behind Super Mario World, and that is Halo Combat Evolved.
Oh,
right? The original Xbox.
Yeah,
the original Xbox.
Agreed. I was thinking about putting this on my list, to be honest.
This made the X. We wouldn't have Xbox without this.
No.
Right? If Halo was still a Mac game, right? Like
it was going to be a Mac multiplayer game. Yeah, it was going to be exclusively multiplayer. Aliens or the Covenant, the aliens versus the humans. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we may not have. It may just be Nintendo versus Sony, maybe even Sega. Who knows?
Yep.
Right. We wouldn't have an Xbox if it wasn't for Halo Combat Evolved. But I will say this. I would love for them to do something with just the term Combat Evolved, because we haven't heard about that ever. Ever since. Right. It's just been Halo 2, 3, 4, 5. I would love for them to do Combat Evolved 2 or something, like a side thing.
That'd be kind of
go back to
interesting,
go back to the roots of the original game.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be cool.
Yeah, I
But
do
all right.
want to say a couple of runner-ups in my book were Tekken Tag Tournament for the PS2 and the original SSX. Love those games. Now I may have a bit of nostalgia for those because those are the two games that I had when I bought the system, and I love Tekken. I love SSX, but they were great. Tekken Tag Tournament.
Tekken Tag Tournament was number 4 on my list.
Okay.
I really had to put.
Right.
I really wanted to put Alien versus Predator just because I thought, bring a little variety, and if you're in Japan, right? Like, just think about it. Like, if the Jaguar, which is going to struggle no matter what out the gate, it's a new console. It looks weird. It doesn't have like that killer, like that game that everybody must have. But you got Alien versus Predator. Is like, yeah, that's the one I'm going to buy. So. That's why I put Tag Tournament number 2 on my list. Number 4 on my list.
Sure.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to dive deep into our backlog and talk about Pikmin 3 for the Wii U and Kid Icarus Uprising for the 3DS. And we're back. Okay, Dave. Let's dive deep into our backlog. And in sort of, rest in peace to the eShops of the Wii U and 3DS.
Oh, yeah.
We thought we'll pick a game on each console to do our backlog on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you did Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS. And I did Pikmin 3 on the Wii U, right? So I always wanted to play a Pikmin game. I didn't play the first 2 games. I didn't play Pikmin 3. I played a little bit of Pikmin 3 Deluxe on the Switch when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to, do a lot of comparisons to the first 2 games comparatively to the third game. You're not going to hear like, oh, yeah, well, in the first 2 games, this did this, and now in the third game, they do this, because I haven't played those games yet. So I'm going into Pikmin 3 sort of with a clean slate, as this is the first true Pikmin game that I've played, because I played Hate Pikmin on 3DS and I really loved it, by the way, but it's not a Pikmin game, a traditional Pikmin game in a sense. So I'm gonna go first, talk about Pikmin 3, North American release, August 4th, 2013, developed and published by Nintendo. It's been released on the Wii U and obviously the deluxe version on the Switch. It's a real-time strategy puzzle game. And I played on the Wii. I played on my original Wii U with a Pro controller, not a gamepad, by the way. Just have to preface that.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit about the background. I mean, this is the third game in the series. And when this game came out, it was the first game in 9 years at that point, right? Like the first 2 came out on the GameCube generation, and both were ported to the Wii with Wii remote support, but they didn't get an actual new game in the series until the Wii U. Mm-hmm. It was confirmed to be developed in development for the Wii at E3 2008. But in 2011, Miyamoto stated development was moved to the next Nintendo's next console, which would turn out to be the Wii U.
Yeah, I think that was the right move, because the Wii was kind of winding down at that point.
Yeah, he thought that the Wii U's HD graphics and secondary screen, and the gamepad would work better for it. Mm-hmm. Now, when I played this game, I played the main campaign, right? Mm-hmm. So I did not play, mission mode or multiplayer mode, the Bengal battle, right? Where you had like split screen competitive 2-player multiplayer Bengal games. Mm-hmm. So I didn't play any of that. So I'm not going to talk about that. And I'm not talking about the mission mode, which is a single player or cooperative multiplayer experience, where you're presented tasks and you have to do the basic Pikmin functions where, you're competing against another person or at a time limit. So I didn't do any of that stuff. So I'm not going to talk about that. Story-wise, again, I wasn't ingrained or into the Pikmin story. I thought I didn't even know there was like one astronaut that like main like character in the Pikmin series. I thought all of them, I thought it was different characters. So this was like the first Pikmin game that didn't, in the main series, that didn't feature the main protagonist, Captain Olimar. Instead, you have 3 new explorers from a world. Actually, as a side note, I just want to let you know, the story of Pikmin 3 is a little crazy, right? Like it is a little like crazy. It's like you 3 characters are on this planet that has like a famine, and like people are dying because there's no food to eat.
Oh, it's that dire, huh? All right.
Yeah. Yes. And you have to go, you have to go find food for your planet. And if you don't succeed, like the people of your planet may die. It's really like that crazy.
Geez, stakes is high.
Yeah, you have to travel to another universe, right? To find food to save your planet. They
do crash in Earth. They crash on Earth, correct?
Well, they crash land on a planet that they deem PNF 404, which is sort of Earth-like, right? Where they encounter plant-like alien creatures that are willing to follow their every command. It's like an army of plant-like creatures, and you use this whistle to command them, and they're willing to help you explore the planet. But I mean, it has like an environmental tone if you think about it, right? Like this is like a new world full of untapped natural resources and full of life, void of any type of like civilized society that probably would use up all the natural resources of this planet in the first place, which is why it's still full of lush environments. So. That's kind of crazy to think about. When I was playing the game, I kind of had that like, wow, we're like destroying this planet. We're kind of destroying this planet. It's kind of crazy. All right. So I mean, graphically, this game is beautiful for a Wii U game. Right. It's very detailed in its sort of world building, from very recognizable environments that you would know, the vegetation. In certain creatures, but they do a clever alien-like creature designs, right? With a lot of the creatures that you encounter, but the environment itself is lush and vibrant and colorful. So they did an amazing job graphically from this. I mean, gameplay. I mean, it's a strategy. I mean, it's a strategy puzzle game, right? At its heart, you use the gamepad. It's very much built to use the gamepad. Because the gamepad is an overhead map and radar where you can track Pikmin and movements in real time, and you can look over to your map. And since you have 3 playable characters, you can use those characters and send them off with a set of Pikmin to do certain tasks, right? And they'll report back to you and tell you that they're enemies, over in this section over here that you will encounter.
Can you see them like? Can you see them on the map and kind of moving around and all that, or?
Well, you could see where their location is.
Okay.
You could pretty much see where their location is. I mean, the Pikmin themselves, which is the main, sort of mechanic of the game. I mean, you can throw them. You could throw them at anything, and they will pick up items to take back to your ship. They will fight enemies. They will build bridges where you can't cross, and they will break down walls, which is all obviously useful. And you have to call them back, so because after they're done, they're just going to stand there. So you have to call them back. And if you see Pikmin just sitting around, you got to call them. Your whistle is very important, so you have to use that mechanic to call them back, to call them to you. You can only handle 100 Pikmin at a time, and apparently that is like standard in any of the Pikmin games.
Right. I feel like that may be a limitation set on the console hardware to some degree. And I'm feeling that they.
So it's the same on the GameCube. So I don't know if that's a limitation necessarily. I mean, maybe when Pikmin 4 comes out, if you can have more, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, they may have just like been like, okay, we can do 100 without a performance hit, and then they built the gameplay around having up to 100 Pikmin. I wonder if that's the case, right? Because you are going to hit You are going to hit a limitation at some point in time, right? You're going to hit a wall.
Well,
It's like,
the whole point, like you have the Pikmin and you tell the Pikmin to take this down, right, a flower or anything like that, and it takes it back to the ship where it plants other Pikmin and you can pick them to bring them into your army, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how that works, where they plant the Pikmin down in the ground and they grow, and then you just pick them and they're part of your crew.
oh, that's awesome.
There are different types of Pikmin, and that's where the strategy comes into play, where you have to manage the type of Pikmin that you have at one time, and all the normal Pikmin are there, but they introduce the rock Pikmin, and they have the red Pikmin is like the standard, and then they introduce in this game the rock Pikmin and the flying Pikmin, and the rock Pikmin are utilized to go through like glass and like heavy areas that are guarded with like heavy fortresses, and then like the flying Pikmin can like pick things up and fly, or go and you could throw them over things, right? So they can go to another location if it's too far. So they have different Pikmin for different things, but the strategy part is where, since you have 3 playable characters, you could tell a character to take these Pikmin, like water Pikmin. They have water Pikmin in here that are only, that won't die in the water.
Right.
You could tell them to go in the water and go over here, to go over here and explore over here. And you can switch between them too, by the way. So that's why they don't show in the map, because you can switch between the playable characters.
I see.
You do need to collect fruit to eat and to bring back to your planet, which they liquefy. They liquefy the fruit, which was kind of weird when I first saw that. I was like, they kind of liquefy it into like a jar. So I guess you got to drink the fruit, which is kind of weird. I hear nobody say anything about that. I was like, why didn't you just leave it the way it is, that you could eat it? But no, they liquefy it. You do have a timer here, which again, that brings to the game mechanics to where you have at night, you have to make sure you leave and go back into space, because if you don't, the monsters will eat the Pikmin, right? And any Pikmin that you don't put back into sort of the Pikmin spaceship, because each type of Pikmin has their own little mini spaceship that will go into space with you when you leave, which you have to call back, by the way. They will eat the Pikmin, and those Pikmin will be dead and gone forever. So so you do have a time limit. You can't just endlessly explore. And by the way, every time you go back into space, you have to eat something because you're tired. You have to replenish your health.
Sure.
So they do let you explore other planets that you've already explored to get more fruit. So in that sense, it's a little bit more fair, where you can go back and go get some bananas and strawberries and then fly back in the air and then go back to another section of the planet, or another planet in general. Oh, no, another section of the planet, sorry. So they do help you with that, but you cannot survive the night. That is like the part where, I guess for some reason monsters are just, more powerful, and you won't be able to survive, so you have to fly back up. So you do have a time limit. I gotta be honest, the thing that excited me most about it, because I'm not a big strategy puzzle person, and I said this is sort of like a twist where it could get me into it, and it did. It really did get me into it. I was like, I wanted to explore, and you do have to strategize about which type of Pikmin you want to use. And then anytime you lose any Pikmin, when you go back into space and come back down, like the things that you, like the flowers and stuff, you can still use those to replenish your Pikmin, right? Remember I told you you throw a Pikmin and they'll take you back to the little Pikmin ship and plant the Pikmin where you pick them out. So you could do that just in case you lose anybody. So I think that was sort of a clever mechanic. I just didn't like the day and night cycle, to be honest.
Is that new to part 3, or have they always had the day and night?
Well, again, I didn't play the other two, but from what I read, the first one had a time mechanic, just in general. It wasn't a day and night. It was just like you had a timer, and the second one didn't. So they wanted to introduce something different in this one. So I wasn't a fan of it. It was like, I should be able to explore no matter if it's day or night, right? Let me just explore the planet freely.
Right.
I guess that's why Pikmin 2 is touted as like the best Pikmin ever. At this point. Does this hold up today? I would say completely yes.
It does. All right. Now,
because you have to put strategy into this, right? Like it's this game is actually made for the Wii remote with the nunchuck, right? Where you have to use your pointer because you're literally commanding them to go. Because you're not, this is not something where you're controlling the main protagonist itself. You're controlling like minions, right? So this was made for a Wii remote and controller and a gamepad as secondary, so you can look at the map and control the other two characters and tell them to go over here and go over here. So I definitely would keep playing this, but I would play the deluxe version just for ease, to be honest.
Right.
On the Switch, it's just easier to use. It's easier because I'm usually always using my Switch. It's a whole thing to put my Wii U together so I could play. So this is an awesome game. I'm not gonna lie. This is like a super awesome game.
Now,
Metacritic.
Well, hold on. The follow-up question: are you going to continue playing this game? That is important.
Well, again, I would play it on the Switch if I did. I don't know. I mean, you got so many different games to play.
Sure.
I would play it like I said, I would play it more so on the Switch than I would on the Wii U, just because I have.
Just out of convenience, yeah.
Yeah, because I play on the Pro Controller. Like I said, I play with Pro Controller, so I have to keep the Pro Controller charged, and I have to keep the Wii U gamepad charged as well. Right. So if the gamepad isn't charged, then it makes no sense if the Pro Controller. So I would play it on the Switch. It is the best play to play this game. But this game is an awesome game. Metacritic also agrees. Right, the Metacritic version for the Wii U version is about an 87, and the user score is about an 87. Gaming Age gave it 100, and Quarter to 3 gave it a 60. So they got 0 bad reviews, only 2 mixed reviews. With the day-night cycle and nothing super innovative other than that. Right, it's sort of what they sort of. They tick some boxes off of that. I would give it, honestly, a solid 8.
8 out of 10. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to buy this complete, Lukey Games has it for $23.97.
That is a very good price for apparently a very good game. Yeah.
So tell me all about Kid Icarus Uprising, which was the third and last game in the series, right?
So far, yes, it is the third and last game so far. This is a very, very interesting game. I love Kid Icarus. I love the original for all its faults. I think that game is amazing. Gunpei Yokoi, who made Metroid, I believe, also did Kid Icarus. It is the same engine. And the musical artist, Hip Tanaka, did both games. So Kid Icarus holds a special place in my heart. I never got to play the Game Boy one. I think of Monsters and Men, I think was the subtitle for that one. But we're not talking about those two games. We're talking about Uprising. This came out in Japan, March 22nd. The North American European release on the same day, on the 23rd. And the Australian release a few days later on the 29th of 2012. All right. This was, or is, a launch title, talking about launch title games, is a launch title for the 3DS, I believe, right? Developed by Sora Limited, which you may know from Smash Brothers fame, right? That's Masahiro Sakurai's company, I believe. It's obviously published by Nintendo. It's a Nintendo property. Released only on the Nintendo 3DS. That is the only way to play it. So obviously I played it on the 3DS. It is a rail/third-person shooter, right? It's a rail shooter and a third-person shooter. They combine both types. It's very, very, very interesting. So like I mentioned before, created by Masahiro Sakurai of Smash Brothers fame. The story goes that Iwata went to him personally and said, "Hey, we want you to make a launch title for the system. We want you to make a thing." And he said, "Okay, I want to do Kid Icarus." And Iwata gave him the green light, said, "Go for it." And apparently the game was started in 2009. Right now, the 3DS didn't come out till 2012. That's a 3-year development cycle for now granted, top quality game, right? I guess AAA quality for like a handheld game. But three years is a lot of development time, right? They had a lot of trouble because they didn't really have access to the hardware specifically, because they were still working on what the 3DS is going to be, what the power of it is. So they kind of had to like guess based on like target specs, right? You kind of like, you're not completely in the dark, but it makes it very difficult when you don't have like a dev kit system there to like iterate and test on. So that was kind of interesting. But despite all that, Uprising sold over 1 million copies and is mostly praised by critics and fans alike. I thought that was kind of interesting. And the music in this game, which I think is one of the highlights, done by the all-star team of Motoi Sakuruba, Yuzo Koshiro, and Yasunori Mitsuda, which are Streets of Rage fame, and the Tales series, and the Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, and Mitsuda is in the upcoming Sea of Stars game. So you got an all-star team handling the soundtrack there. I thought that was kind of fascinating, because I didn't really know. I mean, I knew like some of the songs from the game and all that, but I didn't realize they kind of shot for the fences on that. As far as the story goes, Sakurai was the one who penned the story, and he wanted to keep the tone of the original game, if that makes any sense, you know, even though it's on Nintendo and whatever else. But it was a pretty lighthearted game for what it is, even though, you know, you're ultimately trying to take down Medusa with all these special treasures and whatnot. You become a man, right? It kind of loosely follows the Greek mythological tale of Icarus, right? From a tiny kid to an adult. But yeah, basically the plot of this game, well, like I said, it loosely follows Greek mythology, but the main protagonist is the angel Pit, servant of the goddess of light Palutena, who was in the first game. And basically the goddess of darkness Medusa returns to destroy humanity, and Pit goes out to save the world, first by taking down Medusa, and then taking down the forces of Hades, and then I believe ultimately fighting Hades, the Lord of the Underworld, the source behind Medusa's return. So he is kind of the big bad of this one, which is also, you know, follows the Greek mythology loosely, right? And one thing that I thought was super interesting, I don't know if you played this game before, Dan, at all.
I do own this game, and I don't have the little accessory that, you know, there's a special edition that they sold with the little accessory to hold in your hand, right?
I think there may have been an extra nub thing that like you could attach to the side. I think there may have been something like that. I'll get into that.
No. There was a thing that you would prop your 3DS on to play the game.
Oh, like a little like holder.
Yeah.
Right.
I have the regular game. I don't have the special edition with the holder on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I do remember that now. I also don't have the holder for the system. And I'll get into the controls and whatnot in like just a little bit. But immediately when you turn this game on, you know it's a Sakurai game because it has the same interface as Super Smash Brothers. Like, it's weird. It's weird because you figure it would have like some notes of Greek mythology, maybe some like fluted columns, you know, like lots of like white and green, maybe like green symbols and all that, you know, or blue symbols, like Greek style symbols, maybe some Greek writing. But no, it looks just like Smash Brothers. Like if you put them side by side, you would go, that is the Smash Brothers.
Everything playing Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Smash Brothers.
Yeah. Very interesting. Like even down to the risk reward slider, right? When even in like the latest Smash, you can go from difficulty 2.0 up to 9.0, right? You can kind of drag the slider and make each level more or less difficult, right? And basically, you're wagering hearts, which is your currency in this game, right? Hearts are like coins. So it's, you can wager more, but then you can also lose hearts if you die. And then every time you die, it kind of knocks down the difficulty until you beat the level and stops at 2. It's cool. I definitely like the mechanic, and I think it works in this game, but straight up, that like came out of Smash. Which like I think is kind of funny, and they like still have it in Smash to this day. So obviously it's a mechanic that people like, and Sakurai definitely likes. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And yeah, there's a hell of a ton of fan service. Like as soon as you start playing the game, you'll recognize a lot of the characters from the original, right? They have like the Grim Reapers, the Spec Noses, like the little like giant noses with like the kind of Groucho Marx eyes and the little mustaches on them. The Mono Eyes, the Eggplant Wizards are there, and they will turn you into eggplants, which it definitely brought a smile to my face, right? And now they're all represented in 3D. And I think they look pretty great. They even have the Metroids, right? They had little Metroid creatures.
Wait, they had Metroid on this too?
Yep,
I didn't know that.
They have the little Metroids because they had them in the original too. When you got to the third world, some of the like you'd see like the little things floating in the air, the little tiny Metroids, because it was made by the same creator. So they're like, oh, we're gonna go ahead and throw a nod to Metroid in there, and they continued. You got the little Metroid blobs. It's really cool. And as you're like playing the game on like, especially in the early stages, on the bottom of the screen, they'll kind of like explain some of the game mechanics as you come across them using some of the original sprites, which like I thought was kind of interesting. Even the original sound effects from the original game, I said, oh, that feels good. That feels good. And then basically when you're playing, every stage is broken up into 2 parts. There's the on-rail shooter, which is the first part, and then you get dropped down into like the kind of maze boss area, which is then turns into like a third-person shooter, which was like kind of interesting. I thought it was all on rails, and
so this is not like a platformer at all. This is a full shooter.
No, it is completely different. Yeah, it is an on rails and a third person shooter at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And I think for the most part it works. I'll get into the big negative about this game in just a sec, but you do get narration, full narration by Palutena. She's kind of narrating what's going on and what to look out for, and they have like kind of like a little witty banter back and forth, and I think it's great. I think it works. It was actually pretty pleasant to see. You get a lot of voice acting in this game, so it was like pretty cool. And then like when you get down to the third person thing, then you're kind of exploring around and you're basically trying to find the boss more or less, or open doors to get to the boss. And then you can kind of pick up power-ups along the way, get your energy back, and whatever else, all in 3D. The thing that really kind of mars this game, it's got a weird control. It's got a weird control scheme, right? Because like you want to move with the left stick and look with the right stick, but you can't because there's only one analog stick, right? And I think that was also the problem with the original PSP. It only had the one analog stick. It's the problem with the 3DS. It only has the one analog stick. So basically, you have to use the stylus. So during like the on-rail shooting part, you use the stylus to aim where your weapon is going, right? And then you kind of shoot that part of the screen. No. And after like 5 minutes, nobody wants to do that. I didn't want to do that either, but it's the only way to play, right? So that kind of sucks. And then when you're in the third person mode, then you use like the L button, which is like so like L is to shoot and then you kind of like tap or move on the screen like where you want to be aiming at. So after a while your hand's going to get like a super cramp because it's just not great. So I think that's why they made the little holder for it, to make it a little bit easier to play. But I powered through regardless. And then like as you're going through too, sometimes you'll have like special powers you can use, like supers, I guess you could call them. Right? There's a little thing in the corner. You can tap the thing, and he'll do like a super attack, like based on what you have equipped. You can have different supers, I believe. Right? And then once you end up beating a stage, right, you can take your winnings, like take all the hearts you acquired, which is your currency, like I said, and then you can go to the shop. It's got a full-on shop where you can buy like new weapons and abilities. They have mini games that you can play as well to kind of win other stuff, which I think is kind of neat. And then as far as the weapon loadouts go, there's not like Pit in the original game, in the Game Boy game, Pit had a bow and arrow, right? That was his thing, right? It was bow and arrow. I was okay, yeah, it kind of makes sense. So in this one, yeah. So in this one, you start off with a bow, but now you can equip bows, bracers, blades, like kind of like a sword gun. Clubs, orbiters, which are like little like flying around things that shoot out for you.
Wait. You have clubs, so is melee in this, or is it like the club shoots something?
Oh no. Club is straight up a melee weapon. Yeah,
okay, got it.
There's staves, like gauntlets, like arm gauntlets, and palms, which are like magical tattoos that like fire, and you can get like cannon, like big ass cannon weapons. So. Nine different categories, tons of different weapons. They all do different things, and you can equip one of those weapons as well as like different abilities. So you can you can customize the way that you want to play. If you want to do melee, or you want to do more like a ranged attack, you have that option, which I think is kind of neat. And there is also multiplayer. Obviously, I didn't get to play that. I don't even know if you can even play multiplayer anymore, but they have a co-op mode, which is interesting. And they also have a free-for-all. You can do a free-for-all with up to 6 different players, and I think it's more of like an arena style, right? You kind of go head-to-head with your character. Interesting that it was in there. I was very surprised to see that they had like a full-on like multiplayer mode. But yeah, I wasn't able to play that, sadly. As far as the graphics go, pretty solid. It looked really good. I was impressed for a 3DS game. And you're like flying around a full 3D world, right? When you're doing the on rails thing, and then when you go down into the ground mode, it's like it's like a 3D maze that you're walking through, right? Feels a little like a third person shooter.
Do you think this game would have benefited if it was sort of on rails third person shooter, like half of the time and the other half was like the original 2 games that were on NES and the Game Boy?
Oh, like side scrolling?
Like a side scroller. All right, well, not necessarily, because it wasn't just a side scroller. It was up and down too.
Sure, yeah, north and south, yeah. It was an up
south
and down
scroller as well, yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think it would have benefited if it would have had at least some levels where you had to go up and down or side scrolling?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't,
because this is a departure from the main game itself, right? So
it's different, yeah. Yeah.
From you tell me all the time, like this is not this, Resident Evil 6 isn't a Resident Evil game. So technically this isn't a Kid Icarus game, because this is not what Kid Icarus is known for, being an on rails third person shooter, right? So would it have done it justice if they had some levels where it was more of a platformer, north, south, east, or west, doesn't matter, but like if it was more of a platformer where it had levels where it was where it was a shooter, right?
Okay, so I'll say this. If it was a full-on 2D or 2.5D side-scrolling or scrolling adventure, just period scrolling adventure, I think it would have been great. And it would have been better, but it would have been better only because of the lack of the right thumbstick. If they had the two thumbsticks and you didn't have to use the stylus like that, because it gave me like hand cramps. If I was able to just use the two sticks, I would have liked Kid Icarus Uprising a lot better. And I think that is the criticism that everybody has about the game, or at least like one of the big ones, is the control scheme is not great, but they did what they could based on what they had. So in that respect, yes, I think it would have been better. But if you still had the on-rails segment, and then instead of it being a third-person shooter, it was just like a side-scroller, then only half of the game is going to be annoying to play, and then the other half is going to be that. I don't know. I think it would have been a little bit weird. I think it works for what it is. They just need the extra thumbstick on there, and that would have essentially solved it. I think.
But to your logic, this isn't a Kid Icarus game.
Well, I think that
you tell me, and I use Resident Evil just as an example because you've told me this for multiple games. This isn't a game in the series because Resident Evil is a survival horror game, right?
Well,
Not
the tone is the tone is a lot different. Yeah.
True. Yeah. So
tone is a lot
everything is a lot different in Kid Icarus Rising because it is not a Kid Icarus game in the sense that it doesn't follow a traditional path for the first two iterations of it. It veers off and does something different. So technically, it's not the same. It's a side. It's a sort of a side game like Resident Evil.
Well,
Resident Evil Outbreak or something along those lines, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say for the Resident Evil stuff, it's like the original Alien movie and then Aliens, where one is a really tense survival movie, right? You're kind of running around and like you don't get to see the alien till the end, and it's one alien that's like crawling around this like the Nostromo or whatnot, right? And you're like freaking out, like, oh my god, like your heart's pounding. And then, like, in part 2, there's a hell of a ton of aliens, and you have a crew, and everyone's got outfitted with, like, these automatic weapons and flamethrowers, and it's like, oh, okay.
They still can't beat them.
No, but like, the tone is very different. Even though it still has a lot of the elements of aliens and whatnot, it is in the same series. So I think that is the issue, I think, with Resident Evil. Like, the tone is completely different. Not that 6 is bad by any means, but it's different. I think a lot of the tone of the original Kid Icarus is here. Like I said, Sakurai wanted to maintain the lightheartedness of the original. He brings in a lot of the elements from the original, like ripping out sprites and sounds directly from the original game, which I think is really cool, and kind of brings all the monsters into 3D. He gets the top tier music composers to come in and do remixes of all these songs, plus a bunch of new ones, which are amazing. So I think it still feels like Kid Icarus. Obviously, the gameplay is different, right? The gameplay is very much different. That takes a little bit getting used to, but I would definitely say this is a Kid Icarus game. It certainly plays a lot differently, guaranteed. I will 100% give you that. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty solid. The only knock personally against it, the biggest knock, was the control scheme. And like I said, soundtrack is a banger. I've been listening to the soundtrack outside of the game, which I think is a testament to how good the soundtrack is. Like, they're just really good songs. They bring a lot of nostalgia. They're all orchestrated too. That's like wild, right? Because you don't normally see that. I know Mario Galaxy, they fought to have an orchestrated soundtrack. They did. Some of the Smash Brothers music is orchestrated, right? This is a Sakurai game. He did Smash, so it's not surprising, but it was very pleasant to see. And I like just about every track. I think every track is an orchestrated track. So definitely kind of solid. The high point, gameplay, and the customization and the soundtrack, right? The gameplay minus the control, the bad control scheme, but I thought the gameplay loop was cool. You know, you're doing the like shooting portion, got the narration, and then you go on foot, like exploring around these like ruins, and like all the different customization. Like they have abilities that you can get, right? Different like special abilities, right? Oh, you can fire faster, or you gain more hearts, or you slowly regenerate health, or whatever it is, right? And you can equip as many power-ups that'll fit within like this suitcase, if that makes sense, right? So there's like a bunch of different little squares that like make up this grid, and every power-up is like a Tetris piece. So you have to figure out how to optimize all the different power-ups, right? Some of them will be like a U shape or a straight piece or like an S piece or like a block. And you have to figure out, well, okay, how many can I put in here? And what's the best way to orient them so that I can get like all these like different power-ups? And you have to kind of like pick and choose, right? Once you start getting a bunch of them, it's like, well, all right, I gotta figure out how many I can fit, and like which ones will like work best based on the weapon I have. And that was like real surprising. I didn't even think that was in the game at all. I thought it was just going to be Pit with the bow and arrow, and maybe he gets the bow and arrow upgraded after a couple levels, but it's very cool. It's very cool.
Okay.
And I guess, right? I mean, obviously, you know, the controls are terrible. They're definitely the worst part of the game. Wouldn't preclude me from continuing to play, and I would still recommend this game. I would say to anybody who's interested in trying this game out, definitely try it out, because it is definitely really fun. You just can't play for a long while, right? You gotta rest your hand a little bit. So
I put this in the same category as Star Fox for the Wii U, where you can't just play with a Pro Controller. You have to use the gamepad, which, like, you have to use the gamepad to look where you're going.
Yeah,
it's so cumbersome. Like, just let me use the Pro Controller and look at the screen, look at the TV if I want to, right? Where it's a good game, but the mechanics sort of like hinder you. And I put this in the same category. I've never played this before because of the mechanics, because of the control scheme. So.
Yeah. You know, they just have to put this on the Nintendo Switch Online, right? And update it to use the two sticks, and there you go. That'd be a really great experience. And yes, I will be continuing this game. I'm gonna keep playing it because it's got a lot to it. It's got a lot of replayability. Obviously, I'm not done with the story yet, but as much as I've played so far, I definitely want to continue with it. So, yeah. And then review-wise, right? So this is only a 3DS game, right? So I was able to find some reviews because this obviously came out well after Metacritic, right? And review scores were pretty easy to find online. So the average Metacritic review is 83%. 8.7 from the users, which I think is pretty solid. Both fans and critics are pretty much in line. Famitsu, the best review came from Famitsu, a 40 out of 40. 40 out of 40. That is 100%, Dan. That is a perfect game. That is crazy. And the worst review came from Game Informer. They gave it a 7 out of 10. Now, if you want my score, which I think is the most important, I'm gonna give this game a 7.5. I'm gonna split it down the middle. 7.5. And the biggest thing is the biggest reason for that 7.5 is the control scheme. You know, not the greatest. I understand they were working with what they had at the time, but yeah, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. And if you want to go and pick this game up now, it is available on Lukey Games, and it is on sale right now. If you want to get a complete, if you want to get this game loose, it is normally $89.99, but you can get it on sale for $63.47, right now on Lukey Games. I just took a look. It is still available if you want to pick this game up. And I believe it's the only way to play legally this game. So head on over there if you want to go pick that game up. Lukey is very good, and they test their games. They make sure that they work.
That we know of.
I mean, yeah.
You never know. You never know in this day and age.
That's true.
You never know
true.
in this day and age.
That's true. As far as we know, Lukey is A#1. We stand Lukey.
Loose $62.47.
There you go. There you go. Yep. And it looks like that is episode 30 in the books, folks. We want to thank you guys for listening to the show, for liking, commenting, doing all the good stuff that you guys do. If you want to interact with us, and we know that you do, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Rated G for Gamers. So please listen, like, rate, review, and subscribe. And as always,
keep gaming.